Hi, welcome to Pop Chat. My name is Annette Tarpley. I'm the founder of the Passion of Poetry, and today our special guest is Jawed Akhtar. He's from India, and he is a poet, a writer, and also the founder of Coffee Table Romanticism. So, welcome. Good to
Thank
have
you
you.
so much. Thank you for this highly warm and decorated welcome. Yeah, which
Yeah.
I'm undeserving of.
Oh, no, no, never
Yeah,
undeserving. Never undeserving. Well, it's good to have you. We had some technical difficulties, so we kind of
yeah.
braved through that, and now we can start. But it's so
I
good to
hope the
have you.
audience. Yeah, I hope
Huh?
the audience won't mind. I hope the audience won't mind that. Yeah.
Oh,
The-
I think the audience, especially if they've ever had any kind of live event, knows of the technical difficulties there is. So we
yeah.
have four people joining us so far, and if you make any comments, anybody who is joining us, unless
Yeah.
you set your settings to identify yourself, you need to um, make your comments and put your name there so we know who you are. Otherwise, you just have to
Right.
go. Got a lot of
Right.
traffic going on there, Joed. I
Yeah.
hear traffic.
Oh, is there traffic? Okay.
I hear
Is
some
it
beep,
loud?
a car beeping in the
Oh, it's
background. So
okay.
I'm just going to tell a little bit about you, and I have it. I have it here somewhere. Jawed Akhtar is a working journalist and a digital curator and community builder who has had the experience of having engaged in various forms of media, starting from print, digital, and television. He runs the community forum and platform Coffee Table Romanticisms on Facebook, and he has had experience in writing and reporting, editing, managing news stories of human interests, and youth affairs stories. So he's had all kinds of experience as well as writing a little prose and poetry. So tell me a little bit about you and tell me about where you live in India and what the town or city is like that you live in.
Okay, Annette, thank you so much for having me under the spotlight in your prestigious platform. I wish the best for you, and yeah,
Thank you.
and yeah, India sends her love and warmth all across the seven seas to you,
Thank you.
and you're most welcome, Annette. Annette, I live in the northeastern part of India. It's a tea growing state which goes by the name of Assam. You know, Assam tea. Assam tea is very famous in the world. The tea from this state, actually. Yeah, northeastern part of India. So this state is known as Assam. Yeah, Assam. Assam, Assam. And I live in the capital city here. The place is known as Guwahati. It might be a little tongue twister, pronouncing it, the name of the city, Guwahati. Yeah, these are historical places, basically. Yeah.
Very good.
So,
And did you so have you lived there all your life?
yeah, Anat, I was born here actually. I was born in this city, but I was working in places like Delhi, that is the capital of India, of course, New Delhi, and places as Hyderabad. Hyderabad, in southern India. That's the capital of a state called Andhra Pradesh. Yeah. So, Annette, I was working in the media there, lots of digital platforms, digital media. Then, there are niche spaces like content agencies, content creation, content curation, firms where we have to, prepare niche content and, send those contents to our clientele, basically, website content and let's say content regarding different spaces as let's say even starting from a space as real estate to even restaurants, like we had those overseas based clients for us for whom we had to prepare creative blogs, then press releases, then website content. Like I was all my life, I was associated with digital media. Then with a little bit of stint with the newspapers, with the print daily, yeah, where I was covering city-centric stories, of the destinations I was, located at. Let's say for Delhi, there were some, let's say, for example, I was working for a company called Cyber Media, that was back in Delhi. So they were a B2B platform, business to business platform, and they used to have these, what is that fortnightly, and magazines, and websites, which I was under the charge of. Like I was in the sub editors, profile there, and I had to overlook the content and the news which got uploaded, and the things which got to the press and things like that.
Oh, that's exciting. So you've had your foot in it. Tell me a little bit about coffee table romanticisms and when that started. And I know that you do more than just poetry there. You tend to promote a lot of the arts in general. I think you're a lover of many artistic platforms. So tell us a little bit about your site.
Yeah. And at coffee table romanticisms, it's more of a philosophy, life philosophy. Like, the moniker or the title, it says in itself, it's self explanatory, as you would be knowing. Like coffee, of course, that's like a, symbolic interjection, like coffee being the property, between two individuals. Yeah, yeah. Or, a group of individuals, which binds, the individual. Coffee has been, romanticized, and coffee is a beverage or a concoction which is there in almost all the parts of the world, starting from Latin America, the Colombian coffee variant, to so many, different several types of coffee. And table will be the space for discourse, discussion, debate, intellectualism, and basically understanding the different facets of life. Like how we as everyday heroes, our whole lives, actually collective lives that we lead, or the odysseys we tread and trot upon, our personalized journeys, our esoteric dialogue with self, or let's say we look at a beautiful picture, whatever, the beholder's eye perspective that catches us, the fancy that catches us. Yeah, the discourse, the communication, or let's say the conversation, which is an ongoing human process. Like Annette, art cannot be understood in oblivion. Yeah, like there has to be an audience, a humane audience, or a human audience. Definitely a humane and a human audience. It's like coffee table will be the bridge, across continents, across communities, and let's say even across LGBTQI communities, queer communities. Let's cover the entire world. Uh, that's the motto, or that's the philosophy of coffee table. Somewhat like how Rumi's anecdotal writings or material is respected by Europe, or let's say, or is loved by the West. You understood, like how United Nations declares an entire year as the year of Rumi. You got me. Like and it somewhat like the confluence of Eastern and Western philosophies. Like coffee table stands for that aspect. Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
of course poetry. Huh. Yeah, and as you rightfully mentioned, poetry. We don't just promote poetry, on the site or on the platform. Uh, and poetry in itself is a standalone art. It is a standalone art, definitely. And yeah, like everything is poetry. Like I don't find any difference between bad poetry or good poetry. Like when I say bad poetry, like let me give out a slice of history here, not so distant history. And if Jim Morrison has written lyrics, Jim Morrison, the American rock rock icon, definitely. a universal rock icon. We're complete with his, swashbuckling antics on the stage. If it's very interesting, Annette, I have always thought that there should be a university in the world, or there should be a, global forum in the world which, discusses these aspects. Like, uh, what message or what communication or what is that human communication which Jim Morrison's poetry is trying to say. Everything is poetry, right? And even the open mic, style of poetry, the slam kind of poetry, or the, rap poetry, thanks to places like Harlem in, United States, you know, uh, US, the West, and Europe, they have given the world a whole lot of poetry, even the African continents. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. Poetry exists in so
Yeah.
much, doesn't it? It really does. And I think that's why we can delve into so many different subject matters to derive our poetry from. So, so tell me a little bit about your um, what's in your agenda. I know before that we have had some discussions, you and I, through the months and time that we've known each other. I think we've known each other, not maybe not quite
Yes,
two
Anna.
years,
For
but we've
quite a
spoke.
time.
Yeah, we spoke quite a bit, maybe a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Uh, but a little bit about. I know that you like to come up with new initiatives, and you're kind of a trendsetter. And so, are there any things that you would like to accomplish in promoting those things you love, like literature and poetry?
And I would say, coming from the eastern part of the world, coming from the Asian continent, or as vast a nation as America itself, India in itself, which is as big as America, very diverse also as America itself. And of course, America and India also shares very historical facts. Yeah, very, very, very big historical facts. Like, and the main agenda, if I would like to use this word or keyword here, or the prerogative that I have in my mind, with regard to profitable romanticisms as a forum, or as a platform or an initiative, it's it's like people should learn, or people should know more about Sufism, the Sufi way of understanding life, or the connection with the divine, or, more of an esoteric self, dialogue, which, let's say, let us take a cue from the theatrics or the drama, the dramatics of William Shakespeare. How, Hamlet's characterization takes the skull in his hand, and he says, Hamlet's characterization, vows, something of an avenge, something to avenge his, father's killing, or, mysterious death, uh, or and it how that thing has been played down in pop culture. Because I keep on saying this, even to classes I take, or lectures I undertake, wherein I impart classes or sessions to the students. I say that Shakespeare is the world's first psychologist, with everything like the washing of the hands of the characterization of Macbeth, washing away his guilt, and how, the comic book universe and pop culture in itself has derived, heavily from William Shakespeare, and so also from, literary greats as Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, even Edgar Allan Poe. Batman wouldn't have been there had it not been for Edgar Allan Poe. So, Annette, my thing is like not deviating or not going off track from our theme. My thing is, or my prerogative is, like, and if people should know more about Sufism, people should know more about the Western liberal ideas, the Western liberal ideas, because and if I find India having very deep and cultural ties with United States. Why I mention United States, because you yourself are an American, you are an American bred citizen. I'll tell you, Annette, like, the American War of Independence, just imagine, was inspired by historical events which took place in India. Just imagine, in the 18th century. No one knows this, Annette. I'm not boasting or, I'm not being vain or haughty as I say this. But people have to learn, or people have to understand, concepts, or people have to understand different spaces, history, culture, art, how it's connected. See, Annette, even the American War of Independence, how it's connected to parallel events happening, just imagine, in southern part of India. That was the kingdom of Mysore, Mysore, which was, resisting colonial designs back then, actually, the thought of the British here, under its rulers, like, Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, his son Tipu Sultan. Like, NASA, just imagine, commemorates Tipu Sultan, the 18th century ruler or the monarch of, Mysore, kingdom of Mysore, as the father of modern rocketry. Just imagine. And there is a painting which is lying, in the Wallops flight facility, in the reception or the lobby, of the Wallops flight facility that is there in Virginia, Washington. And that historical painting depicts a war scene between the Royal Mysorean troops, Tipu Sultan's army, and the British army. And there are flying objects in the backdrop, and our president, India's president, former president, and he's known as the missile man of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, and a very learned scholar, a very great intellectual. He went there for some scientific work. He was not the president back then, when he went there, to the Wallops flight facility in Virginia, Washington. So he saw the painting there in the lobby. And what drew his attention, see, and it art, the connectionism of art here, and how history is connected to that, an era, an entire era. And he found out that this was a war painting, actual war painting, that was that traced back to the event of the Anglo-Mysore War. There were these major wars fought in South India, where Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan participated against the British. And Tipu Sultan was a French ally, basically. Yeah, how the French actually, again there is a connection to America, how the French again gifted the Statue of Liberty to the
Oh,
United States. Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah.
okay, I hope, Annette, I'm not going, off
No,
track
you're
or,
fine. You're fine. I
yeah,
wanted to go to some comments from our audience, which I will show these, but again, you're just showing up as Facebook users. So someone said good evening, and someone from
good
Tennessee
evening.
in the U.S. was saying good morning. So if you could please identify yourself, that would be great. Regards to all pop enthusiasts, and somebody from Toronto in Canada was one,
Wow, Toronto. Wow.
and someone else sending hugs and loves. So as you can see, unless you change, somebody from Nepal, unless you change
Nepal.
your thing so that we can identify you, please sign your name at the end of your comment. And someone else sending love. Good evening. That must be somebody's from the Philippines is
Philippines.
watching. Hi, but we don't know. Here, Bogdana is here. She's actually up tomorrow. So hi, Bogdana. And I don't know who I came
Wow.
to. And then hello to us. And please identify yourself. That would be great. I think Bogdana might have been the only one that identified herself. But just after you sign your, put your
Hello,
comment,
hello to you.
yeah, tell us who you are. That would be great. So, do you have anything on your bucket list that you'd like to accomplish in life or that you'd like to do?
Annette, I'm very inspired. I'm forgetting his name. Yeah, Lawrence. What's his name? I'm very inspired by the bookstore which is there in San Francisco. City Lights bookstore, which was also associated with the beat poetry generation, movement, the beat poetry movement, starting with iconic figures as Walt Whitman and Jack Kerouac. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Yeah, Jack
Yeah.
Kerouac. Yeah,
Do you think
yeah,
that when you mention those people that are icons and so forth as far as writings and poetry, do you think that it takes death really to attain notoriety in the poetry community? Because so many of our famous poets are actually no longer here.
yeah.
Is
They
it
are no
not
longer.
till after? Is it not till after we go that we receive notoriety?
I agree with you. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
So
And it.
yeah, I
So
think that maybe we aren't appreciated until after we leave.
yeah,
I
there is.
often say that my children might appreciate my poetry once I'm gone because
Especially yeah, poets.
they don't do it
It,
so much.
it's it's like a common parlance, common popular parlance, Annette, which we hear, people, which we here in India, get to hear people intellectualizing. Like, poets live in their eggshells, hypothetically, quote unquote, eggshells, like, cocoons, but they write about the entire world. See
Yeah,
what a great responsibility, yeah, a matter of great responsibility poets have on their shoulders. Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Without thinking
I,
about themselves, yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
think we have so much power, that we have as well. So we have some other comments here. So we have Alan Johnson is joining us. So hello to Alan Johnson. He says, congratulations, Bogdana is here. And Jill Tate, one of my other admins, she's here, as well as Greg Etzel, who is ever faithful to come to these. Um, Alan Johnson says, people are famous when they die, always the way it's been.
True.
That is true.
Hun- hun-
And it's
100%.
really so bad. I think that that's why, and I've written about it before, in my poetry, as far as that how it's immortalized, in
Actually,
word, and then hopefully we're appreciated long after we're gone.
yeah.
I would love to someday be known as one of the great poets, but I'll never know because if that ever happens, it'll happen long after I'm gone. So, um, I think that we recently had a loss in our community, and so I got a message this morning. It's Elizabeth Marinan Chanling, and she passed last week at 45 years old. And I got a message this morning from someone who is doing the wonderful thing of honoring her and making a book about her,
Oh,
both her publishing her works and then other works to her. So she wanted me
mhm,
to submit a couple pieces, which I did, but I'm really glad she's doing that. I think it's really important that we,
mhm.
kind of immortalize, Elizabeth and honor her pieces. So I think that's great that she's doing that. We
May
have,
the Almighty, yeah, may
we
the
have,
Almighty grant them, yeah, deserving places in
yeah,
paradise.
yeah,
Amen. Yeah, yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. We have Cy Prakash, who is one of my admin. Hi, Cy. Glad
Oh
to,
wow.
and so we have so much talent, as you know, out there in our community. And are you still doing your highlights? Are you still doing your videos on your coffee table like I've done before, your live events?
In between, there has been a hiatus. Yeah, a little bit of, yeah, yeah, a hiatus. But then, and again, I'll bring you all, on board. Yeah, everyone.
Yeah, no, no problem. So is there any kind of advice that you would give to writers and poets,
Writers and poets.
especially those who maybe not have honed that art form, how they can best become a better writer?
Okay, become a better writer. And there was this, book launch long back I had attended. She's an author from India. She goes by the name of Vani Kaushal. So she has written quite a number of novels. I think three or four novels at least. So I remember having gone to her book launch. The book's name was Recession Groom, The Recession Groom. So I remember right from the expert's, mouth or the horse's mouth, I still respect her words or value her words. She said that a person, even if she or he writes on social media, the social media kind of writing, one should invest at least 40 to 45 minutes of writing. There is in prose we have the direct, speech of writing. Let's say, let me quote a historical figure here. Annette, Che Guevara, yeah, from the Cuban Revolution. His diaries are very famous, especially his motorcycle diaries, which was adapted into a motion picture also, major motion picture. How the transformation from a medic, from a doctor or a MBBS student to that of a revolutionary took place. He had written it in a very direct prose or direct speech form in his diaries. So we don't get to see journaling nowadays. There has to be a lot of journaling, maintenance of diaries, right?
Yeah.
And there definitely. You say, please say. You wanted to say something.
Well, I remember. I mean, this is kind of making me recall something. Once I was talking to someone about writing, and what they said, and I can't remember what it was called. It was called something specific, but basically, like when you get up in the morning, doing just what you said, and journaling or writing about anything, and spending, a few minutes, like you mentioned, but they called it something actually. That act of the act or the
Interesting.
yeah, the ritual of doing it. And then through
Wow.
doing that, you can really open up that, inner writer in you. As you progress, perhaps you might just be writing about your feelings initially, and then maybe you get a little bit more creative and so forth and so on. So I guess the answer to that is just right, isn't it? Just right.
Just write. Write
Yeah.
your way to glory.
Like everyone,
I
you,
like that.
let's
Right
say
way to
you,
put it.
then
Sorry, Annette. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Annette, everyone, then let's say all the fraternity of poets, writers, authors, content creators, courageous are the hands or the fingers, I would say, which runs more of a cliche,
Yeah.
which picks up the unsheeted nib, which picks up the pen. The hand in itself is courageous, which is why it
Yeah.
has picked up the way of the pen. Because,
Yeah.
you know, ha, I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be a Puritan here or, with some white robes or, sheet wrapped around me as I say this. But I would say, we can learn from history. And that history is a great mentor to us. Like, when peace be upon him, he had mentioned that the ink of a scholar is more sacred than the blood of a martyr. Just
Yeah.
imagine the ink of a scholar is greater, actually sacred, than the blood of a martyr.
Wow.
How the Semitic faiths, you know, yeah, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they hold, martyrs on a very high pedestal.
Yeah.
Definitely, there might have been wars, historical events, where people have lost their lives. Only the persons or the families who have, lost their near and dear ones historically, thus far, only they know the agony or the sheer pain of it, of the, irreplaceable loss, physical losses. But then, even that of the blood of a martyr, the ink of a scholar stands greater, and that has been quoted by, just imagine, Prophet Muhammad himself.
I love that quote,
So
and
definitely,
this is something
yeah,
interesting Alan Johnson just wrote, and
yeah, yeah,
I don't think you can be a good writer if you can't draw from life experiences, and I think that that is true. That we as poets, writers, are able to make observations and able to take our life experiences and to put them down in word and to be able to express them, very well. And so I definitely think that that is true. That life does give us some. Life is our material. Life is what we, uh, kind of what we draw from whenever we write. So, and then Greg Etzel, he said that you need to be yourself when you write. So I think that,
True, true. Be yourself. Honesty, honesty. Yeah.
yeah, so both good comments. Thank you both very much. And so tell me a little bit about you. And if you could describe yourself to our audience, how would you describe you as a person? How would you describe you as a person?
And Annette, I would describe myself as a seeker. You know how Rumi says, what you seek is seeking you. Definitely the juxtaposition part of it. I'm more of a seeker, Annette. I like human and humane conversations. I like being social, you understand. I like interacting with human beings. Like I don't want to live in an uncharted island, like Robinson Crusoe,
Yeah,
in the famous novel. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a
Even that
lonely
is a great,
place, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's a great story. Definitely, I think it's based on a real life incident of a shipwrecked sailor. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Who had finally forgotten his language. Just imagine staying in the island.
yeah. And you have no interaction with anybody. Just like,
Yes, of
you
course,
hear of those, a story of kind of a feral children. Have you ever heard of that? When
feral children.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting. Please say. Uh, are you speaking about the Jungle Book? No, no,
Well, kind of like
not
that,
Jungle.
kind of like the
Kind of
Jungle
like
Book,
that.
but I think that there's
Yeah.
been a couple instances in real life, and I can't recall. I remember there was a boy that was found that was feral, and he was studied by like a psychologist for a long time, his
Oh,
behaviors
interesting.
and so forth. So,
Hmm,
and that was a real story. It wasn't, the Jungle Book. It was,
hmm,
real. And he, of course, had animalistic type behaviors and so forth, and he had. So,
hmm.
but I actually want you to share with us something that you have written, if you would be so kind.
Definitely, Annette. Just a second, Annette. I remember few lines from a poem, which which might appear so mushy. I have few books, Annette, where there are published poetries actually, but I'm not able to locate those books. Basically, there was an anthology where my poetry got published and things like that. But there is a poem which is kind of very close to my heart, because when I wrote it, and it was more of a, lyrics of a song, poetry in motion, basically. And basically for me, as the creator of the humble piece, uh, I think all the lines are juxtaposed, skin deep, basically. Just like, the self love of femininity, or let's say the sacred me time, which is in trend, in social media, for the womankind, but which is by default a part and parcel of the woman herself, actually, and which she should practice every day. I would say, Annette, that I would read out these lines. I met a girl on February 14th. She was sweet 16. Like these are like read between the lines, basically. Yeah. I met a girl on February 14th. She was sweet 16. Stardust in her eyes, gloss on her lips. That season hits me big time when she smiled at me. No Ice Maiden, Cinderella, nor plain Jane. A girl full of sunshine, leaving a trail of the sun as she left. Beauty as Aphrodite, or some Greek goddess. I want to get lost under the magic of her tresses divine. I know not, here, there, anywhere. So this is my humble poetry, Annette.
Okay, that was wonderful. I loved it. So yes, Sweet 16. Um, so let's say tomorrow you you are told that the next day is going to be your last day in life. What would you want to do?
I
What
agree
would
with
you
you.
want to do in one day? What would you want to do on your last day?
Annette, I would love to return back the love I have received, from across the world, because I treat the world as one, Annette, even mentally, subconsciously, consciously, unconsciously. I'm more inspired by, when Plato, the Greek philosopher Plato, back in his era or timeline, he had spoken about the concept of global citizenship. Yeah, which the populaces back in his time couldn't understand or couldn't fathom. So I want to have connect with the whole world, or understand the entire world. I want to travel the whole world, uh, and which I hope I am able to do, and understand each other's cultures, and understand the universalism that is there, and universalism which has been propagated by the great Sufi, seers and the saints, or let's say the leaders, or the great intellects actually of the world, and try to understand, yeah, and I try to understand how how William Wordsworth, if he would have been born in India, how he would have written his poetry, what sensibilities would have been there. Or I would try to understand the universalism in his poems, like when he speaks about the solitary reaper, and the disappearing fragrance of the poppy seeds, while his train is passing by, and he's sitting inside the coach with his sister Dorothy. Yeah, if I'm correct.
So
So,
yeah, so
those things, John
you're
Keats,
so
yeah, the
deep
great.
in your yeah, you're so deep in your thoughts and your answers. You're very much an intellectual. But I want to give you actually a silly scenario, and that is, and you can tell me what you'd want and why. But let's say you have the opportunity to receive uh, a superhero power, flying,
Okay,
invisible, things like
okay,
that. Um, what
okay.
what superhero power would you want and why?
Uh, okay, superhero power. Uh, the greatness I would quote, and at greatness I would quote, idealism wise, of a Superman, because Annette, it's very interesting, yeah, how Superman's characterization, flies to the fortress of solitude, where his Kryptonian, culture is being, understood or tested or researched upon, and where he brings specimens, from the entire universe, and he, tries to seek answers there. Uh, I have understood this in solidarity. It's like the prophets, the prophets sent by the Almighty in different, historical timelines, starting from Prophet Adam. I would say, and they give a lecture to the populace there. Let's say Prophet Moses is delivering a lecture to the populace. But after delivering the sermon and the lecture and the speech or the advice, what does he do in solitude? What does he do in his solitary time? He goes to the mountains and he becomes a part of the third dimension. Yeah, you understood the third dimension. And that is what is there in the Superman literature. When he flies, to the North Pole, undetected by satellites and all, and he goes into his fortress of solitude. So I would like to go to such a, knowledge center, somewhat like, I might sound very crazy, Annette, as I say this in plain human language. you know, maybe words cannot do justice to this. Like, Annette, how Prophet Solomon's treasures are still not to be found. No archaeologist or no
Right,
expeditionist are able to lay their hands upon his treasures. King Solomon's mine has become more of a, pop culture, statement, or, it has become a cliche. Yeah, it's in the, religious people say it's in the third dimension, guarded by the parallel entities of God. God doesn't want, the souvenirs of Prophet Solomon, to be, found by mere mortals, or it shouldn't go into the wrong hands, basically. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
We have
And,
other comments about your poem that you read earlier.
okay.
So we have by Amaretto Valen. She wrote it was a lovely poem, February 14th, week 16. Michael, or let's see, Greg Etzel, say some awesome. Let me see. Michael Dulake, hi Michael, says fantastic poetry. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Um, what a lovely imagination that you have. Let's see, born in India would be a privilege instead of daffodils. Would he have written about the same jasmine?
Interesting.
That's rather cryptic to me. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that you know what that means. So I'm not sure what that means, but and then Greg Etzel said you are very smart. He loves your mind, and someone else said awesome. So I asked you earlier if you wanted to perhaps you know read some famous person or somebody's poetry that you um, might want to present. Did you come up with anything, or are you empty-handed? Remember we talked earlier? Did you pick out another poem that you wanted to read?
Uh, 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 okay, Annette, you are asking me.
Yes. Remember earlier you said you had. Oops, there he goes. Not sure what happened. He's gone, but we'll wait until he comes back. I'm not sure what happened. Um, live TV. So how is everyone? Should bring somebody else into the studio. Uh, let's see. Add to stream. I don't know who that is. Hello? Anna Micah. I'm not sure who that is. Um, all right. So it's really 43 minutes into the program. Let me see if he has texted me. Otherwise, we just might end this episode. So thank everyone for coming. And I think I'm going to go ahead and end it because I'm not hearing anything. So um, thank you all for attending today and watching us. And thank you, Joed, for coming in today. And thank you for a great episode and for being so insightful. And he said he lost signal, so I just got word from him. He lost signal. Um, let's see. He's trying to find out how he enters. Give me just a second. Maybe I'll see if I can send him the link again. We'll give it a couple minutes. So, see, and see if I can send that to him real quick. Um, okay, and give it just a second. So, I think while he's gone, I'll read a poem that I recently wrote that's gotten a lot of attention. I'm not sure why, but I haven't read it before, so I probably mess it up. But it's called. I was out the other night, I think last week, and my owl was hooting. So I came up with the title "The Moon, the Owl, and Me." And quiet is the night. The moon shines overhead. Celestial glow emits from above. High up in the tall trees, lying in its nest, coos, now muted from the morning dove. Autumn has arrived, the leaves' colors change, the earthy smell of fall in the air. Off in a distance, few in number, the cricket's song, now soft, that once blared. I walk on a path, inhaling the scent of pines, moonbeams filtering in light. The hoot of an owl I clearly hear, its eerie cry resounding in the night. I'm not alone, for the moon is my companion as I continue my late night walk. Peaceful is the air, no humans can be heard, with interrupting chitter chat talk. A bit unsettled, I feel as if I'm being watched, the moon seeming to follow me. Or perhaps it is the owl, or his eyes upon me as he sits in a neighboring tree. Yet there's comfort with my friends from other realms. My confidence I now feel. I would think upon this night in years to come, the night when to nature I did flee, a beautiful, pristine night, a glorious memory of just the moon, the owl, and me. And Joette is back. So, um, hi, friend. So, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, you're
Sorry
there.
for the
You're
disappearing
there,
act.
and you're
Yeah,
here now. So, um, anyway, I was trying
yeah.
to fill in some time. Okay. Earlier we were talking about Emery. She says, Annette, I would mean that Wordsworth has written about an Indian flower such as jasmine rather than about daffodils. Okay, Emerita, thank you for clarifying that. And then Mike Delay says, love your interviews, darling. I guess he's talking about me. And someone else said, you look lovely, dear Annette. Not sure who that is, but thank you. and thank you, Annette. Your background is so cozy. Oh, thank you, Amaretta. Um,
Yeah.
and I have to get my fireplace running back again. And Michael Gelate said, wow, so beautiful. Not sure what he's talking about, perhaps the poem. Love it. The atmosphere, very beautiful in that. And great, awesome poem. So I read one of my poems while you were gone to fill in the time. So, so what I would like to do, because actually it's coming to a close, so what I want you to do is just to take some time and talk to the viewers, maybe a little bit about about the community, maybe the poetry community, and how we can best be supportive to one another and encourage each other, and also any kind of insightfulness that you have regarding writing or continuing to build our community and forum. So go ahead and give us your words of wisdom, sir.
Okay, Annette, you are very gracious, and yes, I'm undeserving. Uh,
No.
what would I say, Annette? Having run, art and aesthetics community, a humanities community and forum for, more than 10 years it has been. Uh, we have seen and witnessed, a whole lot of human interactions. So I would say, and there should be a digital library of, let's say, human interactions, or let's say there should be archiving of, all the communities, because Facebook has facilitated us with a platform where we can build and grow and magnify the philosophies of our a motley or a melange of communities or community forums. There have been several communities which I have come across. I used to write in a community, I remember, Annette, which was known as dark poetry. It was kind of esoteric, the vibe and feel of it, just like how we read a newspaper, and how we have the masthead, the banner, or let's say the fonts and everything. So, Facebook also has done their interface in that manner. If Facebook can have a digital archiving of our, communities, or if we ourselves can do that, it would be great, for further human exchange, human interaction. I have come across, pro literature communities and forums as, Bibliophiles Buffet, which is, based out of India. And, there are a whole lot of great communities and, forums and initiatives, for instance, yours, which are doing a whole lot of, great stuff, let's say in spaces of poetry, art, humanities, and whole lot of human communication, interaction, or, the bridges that are to be built between, cultures and things like that, elements like that, which matters to people, or which matters to humans, like how I am, today sitting here in the northeastern part of India, a big nation as India. I'm again connected to you 7 seas across back in United States.
Yeah.
So, digital technology is the next media, definitely. The new media is the next media. So, we should do something of like, there should be something like a administrators roundtable, administrators roundtable or a conference, that can be physical and that can be virtual also. Let's say any place in this world, make it feasible. Because, there have been lots of literature festivals, poetry festivals, which are happening in their respective spaces. Some are going global also. For example, there is a literature festival here in India, which takes place in the North Indian, state of Rajasthan. That is in North India. It's called the Jaipur Literary Festival, JLF. Like they have a flagship, literary festival, which is, spearheaded by people as Namita Gokhale and, historians as William Dalrymple. Like, his books are bestsellers all across the world. So, maybe we can have an administrators conclave or a round table where we can have brainstorming sessions of, bringing cultures together, of promoting poetry, of, having global workshops all across the world. And, an American mentor coming to India and, collaborating in these workshops, or being the featured artist, or being the spotlight, or let's say, Annette, vice versa, like, an Indian, poet or an artist going to America and, having that cross cultural exchange and dialogue, the
Yeah.
confluence between the East and the West. Yeah,
Well,
Africa, Latin America. Yeah.
yeah. This last summer, actually tried to get have a poetic retreat for poets. I had rented a place, a large place where we could meet and we could stay, and didn't get enough interest. Like I got interest, and then everybody kind of backed down. So next year, I actually want to try that again. This was kind of last minute, but I want to rent a place, by a lake or whatever. I mean, the places that you can rent are very nice, and have everybody come for a retreat. But my real goal someday is to be able to have a cruise where that is my little fantasy about a
Wow.
cruise where we can all meet and have workshops and have this big, poetry type thing. But
Respect.
don't know how to make that happen and, to come into fruition.
It will. It will happen, yeah, in due course of time. Like Godspeed, yeah.
Yeah. But well, we've
Yeah.
come to an end, and we have people saying wonderful interaction and so forth and so on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And Joanne, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you
Thank
and
you.
to listen to you and your intellectual talk and your ideas, and you're a very innovative man. So, my love and blessings to you, and thank you for agreeing to come in here today with me. And we shall meet again, my friend. So, thank you for everyone
Thank
for
you so
joining us.
much.
Yeah, thank you. And
Thank you for having me.
you're welcome. And thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure
Thank
and
you.
an honor. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.